find solutions for all of those animals. And so it really, every life is precious.
I mean, it's 90% not a goal, it's a benchmark. So it's where we can look at across the board at statistics and kind of gauge how a shelter is doing based on a national average. But those statistics represent individual dogs and cats primarily, and some shelters are going to be able to do 95, 98, 99%. I think our shelters are really doing well with 89%. There are still animals in both scenarios, I think, that we can save. So even though we're looking at, in some cases, really large numbers, the focus has to stay on that individual animal. So, and I love the definition that you're putting out more and more, and that this group is a part of putting out more and more, is that it's urgent, individualized care for each animal towards a life-saving outcome. And those percentages are going to shift over time, and may shift in a way that we're not particularly comfortable with as we get more effective in keeping animals out of shelters. But so we treat it as the benchmark, not a goal.
I think it's a really important benchmark, though. I think it's, and I know you're saying the same thing, but it's really important. I think, talking about how vague our industry is, there's a lot of people who believe that 50% might be no-kill or 70% might be no-kill, and use the thought that it's because we're getting to a better place in our world that only the hard animals are going to come into shelters, or maybe coming into their shelter. And I just haven't met an open intake shelter yet that is really dealing with that. That may be our future, but right now I think 90% helps keeps us honest and have honest conversations about the animals that are dying in our shelters, and hopefully keep pushing us forward. I believe that it is a floor rather than a ceiling of life-saving, but it's still a really important floor to get to.
Thank you. So common to people that are seemingly just trying to be good human beings.
I mean, we're trying to change something that has been in place for almost 2 centuries now. That there had to be, when you think about what it must have been like, and there might be some folks here, to work in the shelters in the 70s or the 80s, where, before high volume spay neuter, where it was insurmountable. There were not sufficient resources. And an industry that developed a justification for failure of the animals that they were wanting to take care of. And that, I'm not suggesting any kind of judgment in that's just the way that it is. So there is this entrenched investment in proving us wrong. And the other side of that is that trying to save every animal that comes into an open admission shelter is really hard. And it means you're going to stack crates in the hallway sometimes. You don't want that to be your I think we talked about this yesterday. It is a #1 life-saving strategy, but you don't want that to be your only life-saving strategy. You want to maximize the space that you have, do everything you can, put every resource you can into helping those animals, and sometimes it's not pretty. So I think the more we're able to get the message out there and get support from our communities, if things go wrong, and they will, that we will have people there to support us and rally around us.
I think is it coming through? I think there's a couple things that contribute to it. I think, like politics, animal welfare is no different. There are extremes on either side of the equation. Are there people out there who, under the guise of no-kill, fall into hoarding or fall into poor decisions? Absolutely, they exist. And so those are things we should be looking at individually and reaching out to help those individuals who may have had good intentions but were misguided. But to paint the entire movement with that broad brush of what are exceptions is clearly a movement to protect status quo and continue to play it safe. They exist. We have to acknowledge it and accept it. But I think it's safe to say that most of us who are sincere about this work strive to provide the best of conditions that we can on a day-to-day basis for the animals in our care and individual plans for those who cross our thresholds. However, there are emergencies. There are peak times and seasons, seasonality to what we do, and hurricanes and hoarding cases, and there are all kinds of circumstances that lead us to a place that we may have to set aside capacity for care for life-saving. There are times you have to make those difficult choices. And I say for me, and I think for many of us sitting up here, to honor the resiliency of dogs and cats by continuing the commitment to saving their lives, even through those peak times, is integral to life-saving and being true to no-kill. I often joke, boy, if we could have an even amount of intake spread over 12 months a year, and you knew exactly who was coming in and when and what the circumstances were, well, geez, anybody could do that, right? But that's not our business. There are emergencies, there are urgencies, there are crises, and we have to be able to respond to them, and their lives are just as important as the lives of the animals that are already in the shelter. And so there may be temporary trade-offs, but for those who object to the work we do, to characterize that as substandard care is incredibly wrong-headed, and again, I think more about protecting status quo than it is being concerned about those animals who might be sitting in a crate in a hallway in the middle of a hurricane at my facility. So I ask that, when you hear that, you dispel that, and continue to persevere. You have to have a thick skin for this work, because if you stand up and believe in something, you're opening yourself to criticism, and we are no strangers to that, but it comes with the territory.
Thank you.
I know, I guess I already answered the question once, but I just want to emphasize, euthanasia is not a life-saving tool. I don't, it is odd to me that we're in an industry that sort of positions killing an animal as a standard of care. That's really strange to me. So when we're encountering criticisms, I'm fine with someone wanting us to improve what we do, and I'm always open to that. And it's not like we don't know that there are crates in the hallway. Of course we know there are crates in the hallway. And it's not like we don't know that animals aren't, that's not the greatest way to keep them, and we'll do everything we can to get them out of those crates as quickly as possible. And while they're there, to make that stay as okay as we can, given that the animal's in the shelter to begin with. But the idea that there's always this kind of looming, you should be killing them, that is just mind-blowing to me. And that, we're going to talk about the future of no-kill. I mean, really, it's not just take euthanasia off the table. It's like, we're done with that. Don't bring it up again. It's not population control. It's not any of those things. It's just.
Thank you. That's a good segue to my next question. As we move towards a new day for most pets in our shelters, it seems like big dogs are still getting thrown under the bus, and there's still an expectation that we kill enough of them, quote, for behavior. And in fact, one of the main defenses you hear when leaders are criticized is like, we are still killing plenty of dogs, don't worry. How are you grappling with the situation with big, healthy, bouncy, Ellen calls them like putting young ponies in people's homes? How are you grappling with that? How are you making life and death decisions for that population that we know is savable, but costs us resources that we may not have?
Well, we definitely need to have a sense of urgency around those dogs as they're coming in. And in our shelter in particular, the majority of the dogs that come in are the large breed blocky-headed dogs. And so they need a plan as soon as they come in as to what their path will be, and certainly we want that path to be out the door. We do manage what we call an at-risk list that we use for dogs that immediately don't seem like they're going to do well in the shelter. And we have a plan that we go through on a daily basis to say, you know, who's been in playgroups and who's had a foster plea, and how can we get this dog more exposure, and can we move it to a different adoption center? Has it been on Facebook? Does it have a bio? We do all of these things, and so we keep lists on those dogs to make sure that no one's falling through the cracks. We have weekly cross-departmental meetings about those dogs, and we're always trying to focus on getting those particular dogs that are most at risk out of the shelter. Maybe it's a rescue group, or some other alternative, or finding an appropriate foster or adopter for them. But you've got to keep your eye on the ball, especially when you have that many dogs coming in, and try to see the uniqueness of each of those dogs and figure out what they need, but really try to keep them as short a time as possible and get them out of the shelter as quickly as possible. The worst thing we do is to bring a dog in and make it a bad dog in the shelter. We say that in our shelter a lot, like this dog is fine until it got here. We've made it a dog that now seems unadoptable. We've got to change that and help those dogs, one, not come in the first place. And if they do come in, they need to go out as quickly as they can, because we want a live outcome for all those dogs. Thank you.
I don't have a lot to add to that. Full disclosure, I don't have to make those decisions. People that work at a different level of the organization have to make those daily decisions about whether or not we are going to be able to save a particular dog. All the things that Teresa said, I think we're all using in one form or the other. Also enrichment within the shelter, playgroups, those kinds of things. We put a lot of resources into those animals because those are the ones that need the most help. They're the ones that are coming in. I'll be involved in a third shelter, constructing another shelter this year, and the shelters are enormous to be able to house the dog population that we receive, and most of our intake is dogs. So the only other thing is, we put a lot of them in bow ties and take videos of them. I mean, we built a big marketing apparatus around these dogs as well, in addition to all the things that Teresa mentioned. And bow ties are a big part of that.
But nonetheless, I mean, there's this population that everyone's calling dangerous dogs, which in some shelters like 25% of their dog population. Like, how are you, I think what those dogs these gray zone dogs that are on the verge of life and death every day in our shelters, what should we do? Because I feel like until we tackle those dogs, any shelter can just say, quote, it's dangerous, and we suddenly get to a 80% pay rate. How are you kind of grappling with those gray zone dogs?
In Jacksonville, all we have is big dogs. We haven't had little dogs in Jacksonville for a couple of years. And so to echo what some of the others are saying, everyone is an individual, and you have to have a plan for them before they ever enter the shelter. Don't wait for them to deteriorate in the shelter to come up with some sense of urgency. The urgency should begin before they ever enter. Is there a way you can keep the dog in the home they already have? First and most important step that you can take. What assistance can you offer? What can you do to help keep them with the family they already have? So it starts before they ever get there. Then once they enter, what is their path? Are they a big black dog? Well, maybe he needs a more prominent spot in the kennel. Can you get them out of the building? The second you see that they are not sheltering well, and some of them will show it to you right away, that's a dog that needs to go into foster before he deteriorates, not afterwards, before he does. Get him out of that shelter and into foster home. He will show better in a foster home. They'll get him out and in front of people that may never enter your shelter. And so you exposed his exposure and opportunities for adoption by virtue of getting him out of the shelter. Again, echoing what people say, sometimes we're creating the very dogs that we're saying, how do we save them? Well, failing to do those first three things I just talked about is leading to us being the creators of this problem population of dogs. Marketing. You know, we've even changed dog's name, and then bingo, he's adopted the next day, just with a name change. So you have to be really creative in your marketing and your approaches to that. Are you providing them the right enrichment while they're in the shelter so that they continue to show well and they're not stressed and they're not deteriorating in the shelter? I'll tell you that it's easy to label them a behavior dog and easy to use that as an excuse for euthanasia. And while certainly there's a percentage of animals who may fall in that category, I'm here to tell you it's not 25%, not by a long shot. In Jacksonville, we're finding 1%, 2% on the high end, maybe 3% that legitimately have issues that are beyond our capacity to address and beyond our capacity to make a decision about safely placing them in a home. And safety is important to us as well. Let's dispel that one right now. We're not throwing dangerous dogs out into the street to an unsuspecting public, nor would we ever advocate that anybody else does. But the percentage of those who truly need something beyond what we're able to give them is a very small percentage. If you do all those other things, you'll find that to be true. So listen, 1 to 3% maybe. Of those, some may be dangerous enough and have made that so evident and apparent and clear to you that euthanasia is indeed the right decision to make, or sanctuary, wherever they are. If you've got sanctuary space, please let me know. Looking for it all the time. We've been fortunate in that we've connected with an outside training facility and are piloting a program with them right now to get those dogs who fall in that 1 to 3% that I'm not comfortable placing, but I'm also not comfortable making a decision to take their life. They haven't given me a reason to do that, but I'm uncomfortable placing them in the public. So we now have the ability to take those dogs out of the shelter system, send them someplace else for more intensive training with a much better staff-to-dog ratio. And most of the time, we're finding once they're given that, those guys are placeable as well. And we have a great deal more information on them because somebody had more time to spend with them. Now, I'll tell you, we're pretty far down the continuum with no kill, and so we've got that ability to be focusing and pursuing that last small percentage of the population. And again, animal welfare is a continuum. How do you get there? So again, I would say focus on those first things we said, and I can tell you from our experience and our community, that last little percentage of the population who truly are behavior issues is a very small percentage of your population.
And just a yes or no, are all of you killing / euthanizing, whatever word you use, dogs you believe are truly dangerous?
Yes.
So I think we're touching on some of the common criticisms we hear, because even those, I think most people in this room are probably defending themselves against those. And so to hear you talk about them helps them be able to articulate it. And another one that we hear a lot is that if you go into any of our shelters today, you're probably going to see cats in renal failure, some diabetics, maybe a distemper survivor or two. And a lot of folks would say that it's inhumane, it's it's too many resources, and those animals don't really have a place anyway. Why aren't you focused on saving like the masses of healthy, treatable animals? What is your response to that?
I'd like to respond with a story for you. Again, it goes back to the beginning.
She's going to owe me so much money. She said she wasn't going to speak.
Yeah. So I owe her
She did say
$10
that.
and instead of 5, I owe you 5 already.
And we have 8 minutes left, you guys, so I have 3 more questions, but go.
If every life is precious, then every life is precious. Period. Period, period, period. So I'll tell you real quick about Tater Tot, who came to us. I think there's somebody in the audience who's a co-worker of Tater Tot's mommy. Tater Tot came to us toothless, ancient, only had 1 kidney, eyeballs popping out of her head, and there was very little we could do for Tater Tot. But we could find her a home. We couldn't change her age, we couldn't change her current condition, but we could find her a home, so whatever her last days were would be filled with comfort and love, and she would know that comfort and love before her final day came. We do hospice adoptions on a regular basis. Tater was one of our early on hospice adoptions, and Tater's mom just celebrated her 6th year anniversary in her home.
Bottom line for me, we owe them their lives, period. That's, that's it. And everything that we do is resource allocation. So you either get the resources or you get more resourceful, but you get it done. And I don't, if people want to criticize, oh, you're saving that animal's life is too expensive, well, saving all the lives costs a bunch of money. So it is what it is. I am in a position in our organization to look at that bottom line, and I don't make life or death resource decisions. You go and you get the resources.
Okay, thank you. So I was lucky never to work for, not since my very early career, to work for anyone that told me I had to kill animals, but a lot of people in this room and a lot of people in the movement are working in situations where their boss is either just saying no way, you're crazy, or they're saying that sounds like a good idea, but it's too expensive, or it's too risky, or we don't have time for that. What is your advice to emerging leaders who are trying to create no-kill organizations, who are trying to even save more lives of a certain category of animal, and are getting told no, it's too hard? What is your advice to them?
Well, I guess my advice would be to make the change, to just say that that's not acceptable, we're not going to do that anymore. So I will tell you a quick story. The very first year that we opened our shelter, that we took over the old municipal shelter in 2012, we hired a veterinarian that thought we should kill all the puppies that came positive for parvo. And towards the end of the year, we had a couple of little bitty puppies that came in that, of course, were positive for parvo. And we just said, actually, it was our director of operations took in the puppies, and she said, not today. We're not killing these guys today. You're not dying today. And we said, what is it going to hurt to try to save them? Like, you were going to kill them anyway, so why don't we save them? Yes, great idea. Our veterinarian did not want to do that. And so not only did we start our parvo ward that day, and now we have, gosh, like an 85% save rate on all the parvo dogs that we take in. We actually even help other shelters and rescues treat their parvo dogs as well. We do about 150 a year. Not only did we do that, but we fired our veterinarian. Almost immediately after that, and hired someone who was on board with us, who believed in our vision, and who actually wanted to save lives. And so don't be afraid. And let me tell you, when it's hard to find veterinarians, thinking about firing the only one you have is really hard, and trying to figure out how you're going to provide medical care for all the animals in the shelter with no veterinarian. But it was more important that we had the right people on the team. So we made the decision that we were going to find someone else, and that made all the difference. We were able to really move much faster toward our life-saving goals.
I would add something. I think that it's really important to be able to articulate what the risks are and try to quantify that so that you have a plan in place for if things go wrong. And I think that helps give comfort potentially to leaders.
So in the capacity I work in, a lot of people are like coordinator levels, and they truly will lose their jobs. Like, some of them are taking risks that will mean their livelihood. What is your advice to them, people who want to stay in the movement, but who know that at their level they're going to have bosses that very likely will terminate them or punish them for trying to save lives?
come apply for a job.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think it's the same process, and it is difficult when you're on the inside, but I think it's the same process that I think all of us had to take at one point in our communities of getting political buy-in and getting buy-in for a life-saving agenda. And, you know, for us, it meant that counties needed to come up with some new shelters. I mean, these were hellholes. That's what it meant for Teresa as well, that, you know, the resources were not there for the animals. So we had to put together an advocacy movement that could change some hearts and minds and pocketbooks. It is the same process within an organization, and I think, you know, the other side of that is a job's a job. So if you can't find a way to do your best and feel good about what you're doing, and it's a job. So and it's no different in animal welfare. And the advocacy piece will have to happen in that situation one day. So reach out, get help with that.
So I've been doing this like 7 or 8 years, and I'm ready for retirement. I have like a whole plan to move to Costa Rica. So how do you keep going? Like, what is it that you guys have been doing this so much longer, most of you, than I have? What is it that keeps you going? Like, how do you find the strength and resilience in the face of all this, like what feels like just this noise and negativity and constant fight? How do you keep going? What is it that keeps driving you?
For me, it's just that every single problem that crosses your plate, there's a solution. I just have to find it. And so I welcome problems, because everybody's going to have a problem. The problem that presents themselves in a no-kill community, or trying to become a no-kill community, somebody else is going to have. And then if we can figure it out and find a solution, then we can share it with others, and we can change the world. So it's inspiring.
Our motto at our shelter is solutions, not excuses. And so we use that every single day. So yes, every day is different, but I have never had a more rewarding career in my life. And because every day is different, you have the opportunity to actually make a change for the life of an animal, to make a difference in the life of an animal and the life of people that you are helping every day. And so that brings me back every day. That it's what we're doing and what we're achieving for animals and people every day.
We make it a point to celebrate our successes and focus on what we got right and what we're doing well, and looking at, to Teresa's point, for those things that might have been disheartening or frustrating, seeking solutions to it. But I'll tell you that the thing that keeps me going every day, although retirement gets more attractive every day, but that's an age thing as much as anything else, is seeing this room of people, seeing the incredibly talented, excited, engaged team that we have, and it's an ever-changing and growing team, and seeing the energy and the enthusiasm for life-saving. What was novel and new to some of us when we started 20 plus years ago is not new anymore. There's constantly changing what that is, and there are new frontiers at all times, and learning is a constant. I come to places like this and learn more than I ever share with anybody else. And so there's a lot of excitement in this movement, and there's a lot of success in this movement. And we can focus on the frustrations, or we can focus on that excitement and multiplying that excitement, and focusing on paving the path for those new and emerging leaders who are coming, and helping make that a smoother path for them than it might have been for some of us. But I say it's basic psychology 101. I've got a choice every day. I can wake up and be privileged to go to work and make a difference every day, and I can go home feeling good about what I was able to do, or I can focus on what I didn't do. That's a choice. That is a conscious choice that I make every single day.
I love what I do. I love what I do, and I love the people I get to do it with. And it's, you know, I'm always meeting new people that inspire me, and some that I get to inspire. So that's, I don't think we could get any luckier. I mean, really, my previous career, I defended criminals, and while I got some satisfaction out of trying to protect your constitutional rights, it wasn't really that fun. And you know, at the end of the day, I can always justify where I spent my time. So we're pretty lucky. We're a lucky bunch for that. And I think we're making history. I think that the way sheltering was before this movement, before we all came along, was wrong. It's just flat out morally wrong, bad, wrong. And there is no longer any justification for the way shelters were once run. So this is something that is within our power to change, and I'm honored to be a part of that change and honored to be with all of you.
Thank you. One last yes or no question. Is no-kill as an idea, as a way of doing sheltering, and as a movement, is it here to stay?
Yes.
Yes.